Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I just got back from a beautiful wedding in Montreal, so if you ever have a chance to go to Montreal, please do. It's a wonderful city, especially in the spring. The weather was beautiful. There's a horticultural garden there, which is just wonderful. So of course I went there. Such a variety of lilacs, which were in full bloom. They're a little bit behind in Montreal. It's a little bit cooler than where I am in Canada. So right now it's a beautiful day. It's partly cloudy, partly sunny, but luckily it's dry. We had some much needed rain last night, and it's about 18 or 19 degrees Celsius, which I believe is about 66 degrees Fahrenheit. And what I'm going to be doing today is I'm just on a lunch break right now from work, and I have these Baby Kim Lilacs in my garden. I actually have 3 of them, and I've decided to take them out because I actually have lilacs already that are on standard, so they're already nose height, which I found much better than the Baby Kim, which are quite a bit smaller. And I think the Baby Kim would be wonderful in the smaller environment. So if you're, for example, in a container by your front porch or on a deck, something like that, or if you're in an apartment, that would be a wonderful application. My garden in the back is relatively large, and I already have so many lilacs as it is, so I just thought, you know, I could better use that space for something else. So I'm going to be taking those out and giving those away. I've got somebody coming, and they just messaged me that they wanted to come later this afternoon, and I won't be here, so I'm going to just leave them for them, dig them out and put them at the front door for them. So I've got to do that now on my lunch break, and yeah, let's go do that together. So here is one of my Miss Kim lilacs, or Baby Kim I should say, Baby Kim. And you can see it's finished its bloom, and it stays about this compact size here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just take my digging fork and loosen the soil around it before I dig it up, just to make sure I don't damage any roots. And it's compact, so it shouldn't be too difficult to do. So I'm just gonna give you some perspective. I've got some Alchemilla mollis next to it, and here's the dwarf shrub. Got some allium behind it. So I'll try not to disturb those, and we'll see how we go. Luckily it did rain yesterday, so that makes the digging a little bit easier. So luckily it came up relatively easy. It wasn't too difficult, and the soil is soft, and that really helped quite a bit. What I'm going to do is just take my shovel and kind of pull it up a little bit. I'm going to try to knock off as much of the soil as I can, because as you can see I do have some horsetail weed in here, and I don't want to spread that to someone else's garden. So I'm going to try to knock off as much of the soil as possible. All right, we've got it dug up, and it's looking really good. The roots are looking very healthy. It hasn't been in there too long, like maybe 1 or 2 seasons, so it's not that deeply rooted. Oops. So here is the tag. Baby Kim, fragrant lilac. Here are the specs. It needs full sun. Its hardiness zones 3 to 8, gets 2 to 3 feet tall, and 2.5 feet wide. Moist, well-drained soil. So I'm gonna give this to the person who's gonna come to get this. All right, we've got our 2 Baby Kim lilacs out in the wagon. They're a little bit heavy, so I'm gonna use the wagon to pull them out to the front, and then I'm gonna put them in plastic bags for pickup, and they should be fine. All right, so I've got these 2 plants dug up and put into these plastic recycling bags just to keep the dirt intact and so they won't make a mess in the person's trunk. And yeah, they're very healthy plants. They just weren't the right plant for where I have them. And I'm not missing out anything. I've got lots of lilacs. I highly recommend lilacs. And if you need a small lilac, Baby Kim is a great one. You can see all the faded blooms, so it definitely bloomed. And if you have an apartment or a balcony, you could put these in a container, and they would do really well if you have a cold climate. Good morning, friends. It is another day. It's been a couple weeks since I removed those 2 Baby Kim Lilacs, and what I'm going to do today is deadhead my Gertrude Jekyll rose. It has its beautiful first flush of blooms in June, which are just amazing, and then after that, if you deadhead, you'll get ongoing sporadic blooms. So I'm going to be deadheading my Gertrude Jekyll rose. I've been deadheading my Crown Princess Margarita up front quite regularly, and I'm not too picky about it. Like, I will try to cut right above a 5-petal or 5-leaf branch, but it's not very important to me. The more important thing is just to get off those dead blooms. Because Gertrude Jekyll is so vigorous, I find like it doesn't really matter, it'll still grow. And basically I just cut it a little bit for shape as well. And I can also say that I do have a Guernsey cream clematis growing throughout it, and I did deadhead that earlier this year, and that has resulted in some ongoing blooms, which is unusual because I normally don't deadhead it, and so I don't get additional blooms. So that was very nice. So that's a lesson I learned, is that if you deadhead Guernsey cream, you may get a smaller second flush later on. I also have an area of the garden that is full of Canterbury Bells, which looked amazing when they were in bloom. They just, I planted them, you know, I'd winter sown them, and I think I planted them a year or 2 ago. They didn't do much, and then this year they just exploded. They looked amazing, but now they've all kind of faded and gone over. So my plan is to cut those all back and get those all out of the garden bed so I can make room for some more planting. So I'll show you where, what my Gertrude Jekyll looks like. It's 7 a.m. early morning and it's in the sun, and then I'll show you the Canterbury Bells that I'm going to be cutting back today. So here you can see my Gertrude Jekyll. You see it had some sporadic blooms, so I've given that a nice deadhead. It looks much better, nice and fresh, and you can see here are some of my dead blooms and foliage. I've also removed some of the foxglove that were pretty much wrapping up. I have a lot of foxglove self-seeding, so I thought, you know, maybe I will cut them back this year so they don't all go to seed as much. And over in this direction here is where my Canterbury Bells are that have faded, so we'll go over there and take a look at those. Canterbury Bells area here, you can see that most of them have gone over. They were a lovely purple flower. I had some white in there. You can see some white back here. Some of them are still nice. And then I also had some pink, some light pink, and those have kind of gone over. So I'm gonna clear all these out, even if some of them still look nice, because I want to make some room in here. This has gotten quite congested with these Canterbury Bells, so yeah, it's time to clear out this garden bed. Well, you can see my first load here. So a lot of these plants I was able to just cut back, and then some of them I pulled out by the roots. They are quite large plants, and you can see they're quite beautiful. Lovely colors. It was just, yeah, they were just too much, and they were actually shading out my echinacea plants. So now my echinacea plants have a chance to breathe. This is a load 1. I'm gonna go dump, and then we'll come back and do some more. But I would recommend, if you are doing this, to just wear gloves, because it does have a bit of a prickly spine there, a little bit prickly. So it's definitely got that rough texture, which I think makes it very deer resistant and bunny resistant. But anyway, just a word to the wise. So I have my second load here of Canterbury Bells and some other weeds. It was a bit tough getting some of these roots out. Actually, they have quite a deep root. I guess they have to because they're so tall, so to keep the stability. But you can see this bed looks a lot better. So this rose has been uncovered. This clematis has been uncovered. And here my echinacea are able to breathe now. I still have quite a bit of cleanup to do in this bed, but at least the main part of it is clear. So I just have to clean up all these weeds here, and that hopefully won't take too long. I'm gonna try to dampen the soil first so they're easier to pull. And this is my Alnwick rose. And over on this side, see, I have a lot of self-seeded seedlings here, which I believe are my calendula, but you can see I had to step on some of them. And one of the lessons I learned is that when you have a bed like this wide, it's better to have space behind and in front. So if I had to redo this, I would keep a strip at the back to walk on so I could access the bed from both sides, because as it is, it's just a little bit too far to reach at the very back from the front here. So that's a lesson learned. And this poor clematis here, I did deadhead it as well. It had some beautiful seed pods, but I figure I will give it a fertilization, give it a water, and then who knows, maybe it'll reflush. So I'm glad I got this task kind of at least started. I can only do a little bit at a time, but it's looking much better already and is giving me much more room for plants, which is nice to have because this is one of the very few full sun areas in my garden. Okay, so I got those 2 plants put away and I couldn't get all the soil off of it. It was actually quite heavy. I have clay soil, so it was hard to get off. So I just told the lady who's coming to get them to make sure she does a root wash. So she's gonna do that before she plants them. So she's gonna take it onto her driveway and then do a jet spray with her hose so all the soil comes off. It makes a bit of a mess, but it is what it is, better than having weeds. And then she's going to plant those in her soil, her native soil, with just the roots, none of the soil. So my soil will get cleaned up. When it dries up, she can just sweep it up and dispose of it in the compost or something. So that's the 2 of them. I've got 1 more. Someone else is going to come for the 3rd one, and they're coming at the end of the day, so I'm going to dig that one up later. But I'm just glad that these can go to a home where they'll be better appreciated, and I'm not missing out on anything because I have so many lilacs in my garden. They're one of my favorite plants. They are such heavily scented in the spring when there's not much else blooming that smells so lovely. Like right now my peonies are in bloom, so it's kind of a succession of fragrant blooms. So I have lilacs, and then after that it's the peonies. Once the peonies start fading out, we have the roses. So it's just a lovely part of gardening is like fragrant flowers. So yeah, don't be afraid to transplant plants and take them out. And even though it is June now, it's actually like fine to transplant, I believe, because right now we are still cool enough where it's not going to stress out the plants too much. They're done their bloom. Like I could have cut them back, but I just am going to leave that to the person who's getting them if they want to do that. But ideally, like they should be cutting them back. The blooms are already done. I just wanted to show them that, you know, the faded blooms were on that plant. And after you transplant them, you just give them a really good water. Tomorrow we're expecting rain, so it's actually kind of perfect time to transplant. And yeah, she can just put some fertilizer in and they'll be good to go for next year. So they bloom on old wood. So, you know, you have to be just careful just to cut off all the dead blooms, but nothing else. And luckily, these Baby Kims, they're so compact that they really don't need any trimming or anything like that because they are kind of that 2 to 3 foot shape anyways, and they just keep that natural kind of globe shape. So quick garden project, took a lot less time than I thought it would. And yeah, I have to get back to work and then I'll do the last one in the evening.